Dylan.
Hey, how's it going?
Not bad, huh? How are you?
Doing all right. Noticing a lot more of my communication through the day is other teams asking about how to do the CID composition stuff, so that's good progress.
Hey, Jose.
Hello, everyone.
We are only waiting on Adam. Does anyone have anything? There's nothing urgent.
I basically arrived now. I'm catching up on the status of how is infra doing. Probably in a couple of hours, I have a better understanding, but I don't have any blockers.
Okay, man.
We have nothing on the agenda. Camille, do you have anything?
Empty.
Empty.
Okay, so I don't have, I have item from the last week. We had time. Let me copy that over. I'm kind of thinking like about like some way for us like to I don't know, share the status of like what we are doing or something. I don't know if this is like strongly necessary. Would it be helpful or not? Or like describing not just like in one sentence what I did and describing in the next sentence what is my plan for the next week.
Where is this? Like, because we have the Geekbot in Slack where we're doing that now daily, but is it?
Yes, but like I always find the Geekbot to be too noisy, like not very comprehensive information about like the actual development, more like about the personal stuff and feeling of like individual hurdles.
Yeah, and it's also not all in one place, right? Because you have to scroll back through Slack and find it in other messages to figure out if you wanted to summarize views. So you're wondering like a table with one row per team member or something, or?
I don't know if table, maybe just like each week we start like with just everyone describing what they finished and like what you plan to do this week. Like one sentence at most. So kind of have like the overall like perspective from on like who on what everyone is working on and like what is like the goal. Because like I'm kind of like thinking about from that perspective that like that we don't really overlap with what we are doing yet. Because we still have a lot of plenty of other stuff. But I'm kind of wondering if we can make somehow everyone aware of like what is like what we are doing.
My initial instinct is we have like so many places where we're doing that already, and introducing another one, like I was saying to Craig, if we create an issue and we want to work on it, we have to assign a milestone to it, but then we also have to assign the sharding active label to it, otherwise it doesn't appear on our board. we need to assign it to ourselves, then we need to assign it to an epic, and then we need to update the epic with a due date.
I know.
And we need to, there's a single source of truth table written in one of the epics that we need to update with the latest on what we're doing. We get asked by Geekbot every day what we're working on. There's much more than that is not actually coming to the top of my head right now, but like we just have so much status update stuff to do already.
So maybe like rephrase it differently. Would it make sense, or like would it be helpful, like for every one of us, like to spell out what is like your goal for this week?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, from my side, I need to fix the PG bouncers because we have a different routing layer using the CI split, and it seems that we're having some problems there. This is the main goal, besides looking for the loads from JMeter. With that, I think we can start to have execute some tests on infrastructure and see how can we do the split, how long it will take, and so on.
I'll go next then. My goal is working on performance metric stuff for this week, which is extra fields in our logs that explain DB count and duration broken down by database, and additionally Prometheus. But I spend a lot of the time throughout most of my days just responding to the secure team issues, because it seems like another one pops up every day, and I just want to go through in detail and triage those and explain what to do. And I think we're at the point where we probably have so many secure team issues that they're not going to do them all in 14.2, and I might just try to pick one or two and tackle that as well. I haven't yet decided, but I was thinking about some of them seem straightforward enough that I should just do it myself.
So like about the secure stuff, like how is it going? Like the discussion, like in what direction you are making changes?
The discussion around denormalizing project ID for a couple of fields on the denormalizing project ID on the security scans table, which actually solves like quite a few of the queries. I've spoken to Shubhashish, and he's actually working on this now. That's his top priority. And then the second thing is denormalizing the pipeline ID on that same thing, which solves several other queries. And then there is a separate discussion going on with the secure and the verify team about having a denormalized table that says which projects have used which CI features in the past for doing joins, because both of those teams have a feature where they're like, I want to go to a dashboard and I want you to show me only the list of projects that have used code coverage, or only the list of projects that have security reports on them. And that is a tricky query to write, and it's actually super inefficient, the query they have today, because it joins to a massive table to see if the project exists in there through a massive table. And yeah, we could actually denormalize this concept of store whether or not a project has used a feature, just one time, write that to a table. And that
It actually
security reports.
It actually makes sense as a structure to be implemented, because I'm kind of like remember like with this code coverage where like we were cross joining so many tables like to find if it has like a single artifact.
Exactly, yeah. That's the query, and it's such a weird query to write. Like, I want to see the list of projects that have code coverage, and like you join through CI tables and then artifacts, which is two huge tables to see if the project exists in there. And once it exists, that's a permanently cacheable detail, so we may as well just write it to a table. Yeah, that one is not started yet by either Verify or Secure, as far as I can see. Then yeah, there was another new one that you created last week that I just got to in triage today. Describe the problem and the solution.
Yes, but like they all are like of the very similar, like I guess solution. It's more like, as you're saying, that like if we solve these two, it's very likely that we cannot solve most of them.
There was about like 12 different queries or something that you and Tom have identified. some of it's just been removing code, but there is now about maybe 4 classes of problem that are quite distinct. Okay, one is simply denormalizing fields, so we just join through less things. The other one is the usage one, which I just described. And then the secure one that Tong found today was a kind of, oh no, sorry, that you found last week, was kind of a hacky way of using joins to avoid leaking data, leaking data because of poorly modeled choices. That one's easy to fix, just a completely different approach to all the other ones though. It won't involve denormalization. It'll just involve fixing the hack in a slightly different way, I think. That's me. Tong, you're up next.
I'm planning to get the POC to green. Almost there. I think there's one last class of problems which is hanging. I think there's a thread that locked somewhere that's affecting a few feature specs. So hopefully that's all the same issues. If not, then we have 6 different feature specs actually. After that, I think there's about 43 to-dos that don't have open issues. So I don't know what I'll do. Maybe open an issue to open issues to come through them. And then I'll look into shipping schemas.
If any of those to-dos are security related ones, then just link them to me, like maybe the line of the code, because then I can just cross-reference them to figure out if we've already covered it elsewhere.
Yeah, sounds good.
I'm kind of need to think about like the set of the changes that we need to make to the all of this fundamental stuff related to the database. I'm kind of thinking that right now, like, we have pretty good grasp of the code changes needed to have things generally working. There is like this problem of the two-phase commit, and I'm kind of like wondering if should I invest time into this now or wait for Adam to go back because he started working on that. This is my decision point. And second, I actually need to, as I mentioned, I need to think about like this fundamental stuff of handling many databases and like how we gonna want to solve stickiness, because this also impacts, for example, site keylog read-only replicas support. And maybe this is another set of the features that we're gonna have to fan out to this time memory team to ask them to help us with that, so we could not have to do it. And I just want to finish pretty old MR that I have open that is kind of lying around. But then I was like thinking about looking into schemas, but if you don't are looking into schemas, so I could leave that to you. But with the schema, I kind of noticed that we have this strange problem about DB migrate research and the public. Yes,
schema.
like,
oh right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes,
The public schema.
Like in the migration, you have to run with the very wide schema search path, where in the application, you need to run with very narrow schema search path.
Yeah, no, I fixed it. The problem was that there was code somewhere that says reset all, and it was resetting the search path in the database level. Back to user.
What did you do? Because I kind of tried to override that for running in the RAID.
Yeah.
Or like in migration.
So I reverted that. Let me find the commit.
Okay, just link me issue. I will.
Yeah, I'll link you the commit. Yeah, but basically we need to ban reset all because there's a database thing called reset all, and it resets all parameters. So Postgres parameters, I don't know what you call them, to default value. So the search path went back to user public, but Rails doesn't know about it. Rails actually caches schema search path, so Rails doesn't know about it. So that's why it happened. And it probably only happens on DB migrate reset because DB migrate reset runs all migrations. And one of the earlier migrations code reset all, and then every other one, every later migration had the wrong search path. So
You also mentioned that the enum from what I saw. Is it something that we should backport?
the what, sorry?
I think you also mentioned, because I also noticed this problem with enums, and I think that you showed the issue that AI solve that upstream. Is it something that you consider that we should backport?
I think so. If it's actually fixing what I think it's fixing, I haven't verified that. Because the issue report was talking about something else. It might not be fixing the same thing. But yeah, that might be worth backporting as well.
Okay, so I think my plan is like today is like go through all of that stuff from the POC and start creating issues for that. And then I go back to my MRs and like looking at some of these problems that we have about many databases support.
I had one thing I ran into today that I was thinking, good discussion point about disabled joins, that a lot of the disabled joins are part of has many queries that might be unused. Do people have opinions on whether a has many should just always be there, even if we don't use it? Because we can get rid of some has manys, particularly has many throughs that people have kind of cleverly put in the code that aren't actually being used.
That's I think like my opinion on that is like we actually have two patterns in the code. One is using has many. Second pattern is people use sometimes a where clause, and they implement additional methods for that. At least my preference is like using what Rails offers, so like has many, has one. But sometimes if you look for example at some queries like for the runners, but not only elsewhere, people just implement that as a class methods doing some very complex queries. So we don't maybe use this many has manys, but we are not very strict about the access patterns, how you need to access these cross relations, because sometimes we actually manually write queries where we put all the filters into where clause.
Yeah, I'm trying to map that to, okay, the has many disabled joins allows us to use Rails to skip the join query, but you're saying that some people might be doing class methods that are doing like a weird subselect trick or something like that to accomplish exactly the same thing, and now they can't benefit from disabled joins. Is that roughly what you're talking about?
I'm saying that like you are probably correct. We don't use that many relations in the disabled joins. I don't think that we know if we use all of these has manys. But also like we don't use many of them because we have different pattern where we just use where. So I think about the relations, and this is another problem that we need to solve, like the foreign keys replacement, because a lot of these has manys, not with the disabled joins, we require dependent configuration on the relation. So I mean, like at least from my perspective, like it would be better to actually have the reflection on the relationships that you have defined in the model. But I don't know. I actually need to kind of scan the foreign keys and see if the removed foreign keys has associated relationship on the model and whether it's actually properly configured. Because like I think each foreign key that we would remove would have to have these the three properly configured of the relationships
Right.
on the arrays to actually remove objects. But I was actually thinking about something different as well. Maybe we would introduce CI projects table that would only be a mirror of the IDs, and you would just remove the CI projects entry from another database. And we would kind of rebase all of these foreign keys onto this table instead. Maybe this would kind of resolve a lot of behavior change that we have today with the foreign keys.
Gives us what the advantage that if you delete a project, then you delete from that table and get cascading deletes. It gives us guarantees that all of the project ID columns have integrity in that they refer to a project that still exists for the most part, assuming we keep those two tables in sync. But it doesn't solve the other foreign keys. There's a lot of things that foreign key reference pipelines and CI builds, particularly from secure stuff.
Yes, correct. It doesn't solve like all others, but actually, I kind of think that you at least have like the clear orphans being covered. But I think like one of the things that I kind of learned when discussing with different people is like that at the current scale for the very big project, the foreign keys actually are becoming a problem from actually executing them as a delete statement because it actually does very wide system log to delete data. So maybe even trying to do it this way is maybe like the wrong. Maybe we should kind of really like rewrite our deletion to be more sequential, that you first traverse relations to remove data um, outside of the transaction, and then you kind of actually remove like the project to actually have better control about what is deleted. Sorry, I have a lot of random thoughts about the foreign keys. I need to write them down about how we approach it. Because like I think like in any case we need to kind of figure out some kind of I don't know topological tree of deletion to figure out that we actually cover all bases when we delete data. Because in general, if we use dependent destroy, sorry, if we use dependent, we really want to use delete all, but it has all downsides of not calling callbacks and leaving data orphaned.
Yeah, orphan data seems to be like, for a lot of categories, orphan data is just extra wasted storage. There is weird categories where you can find things by ID without including a project in the path, but they are pretty rare. And permissions checks and things are basically going to make it impossible to ever get any of this data out of the database.
I'm less worried about the database because they are pretty straightforward to clean up. I'm more worried about attached data, so like object store, packages, and things like that. As soon as you lose the entry in the database, you actually don't know how to remove that. So that's really, I think, like the biggest issue that I have with the foreign keys. Because like, I mean, like with the foreign keys, if you discover that like you have some orphan data, you probably can run some kind of search and like remove that. But if you lose the entry to the object storage, that's pretty then impossible thing to do.
Yeah, if object storage has no reference back to the database to know that it is orphaned, that is not good. That's not easy for us to deal with. But that, that happens whether we have foreign keys or not, because cascading deletes would be creating that problem anyway.
Yeah, so I think like this is like probably the problem of our today's system, where you use cascading deletes and you don't control like how data is being removed. So
yeah, that kind of makes me think like we should not really be encouraging on dependent delete ever. But yeah, I linked to the issue about foreign keys that we just started this conversation last week because other people are asking about it from secure teams now and trying to add in secure teams, some of the team trying to add in dependent deletes or just asking for me to review that preliminarily, and I just actually don't know yet what we want.
Yes, so let me take a look at that. Maybe I will have some proposals to discuss on that.
Camille, how many things do you have on your mind for this week's now? You listed too many things, I think, for you to think about concurrently.
Yes, actually, like I listed too many things, but I'm kind of thinking that we need to think about that because we're gonna have like Adam, Barry, like working with us, so they could really like take over some of these things later if we figure out how we want to approach that. So at least in my head, we are still in this mode of like creating issues and fudging them like in some kind of like I don't know, like the direction, but we don't know yet exactly how to implement that. And only then like we start like trialing these issues when we start working on them. So too many things, too many problems to solve. But I'm actually super happy that like we got this messaging from the Eric that we expect to engage other teams and we need like their very quick assistance because it kind of I think it's still like it's some of our capacity on doing stuff because like you, for example, need to help the secure and we're gonna need to help, but we actually have more time to think about this fundamental stuff instead of fixing these issues that are usually very domain specific and it's really hard to understand like what is the best way to solve them. So I think this is pretty good outcome of the last week that we have like this clear like expectation that others will actually do that and we can help them out, but we can continue focusing on discussing foreign keys. Okay, I think that's it for me.
Right then, I'm going to jump off then. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Have a good rest of your Monday. Thank you.
Yeah.